Okay. So guys, today we will actually discuss about UI actions. Okay. So let me just recap what are all the things we have covered so far. We have actually covered so how to create the table, how to create the dictionaries, and how to create the sections, forms, and also we have seen how to create the child tables as well. After that, we had actually discussed about reference qualifiers and dictionary properties and dictionary overrides. After that, we have discussed UI policies, data policies, and client-side APIs such as glide user, glide form, and glide dialog window, glide ejects. So glide dialog window we haven't covered it yet. So parallelly, we have covered client scripts on load and on change, on submit, and on selected client script. Right. So far, we have actually covered, right? Anything we
Yes,
have
Uday.
covered extra? Okay. So guys, today we will actually discuss about UI actions. Okay, what are UI actions? So UI actions are something like buttons. So let me just show you what are all we call actually UI actions. It looks like a buttons. Buttons in the sense we'll show you. This is actually a button, right? Likewise, if you want to create a new button here, we can actually create a new UI action. So how many types of UI actions are there? I can actually show you. Okay. So let me just duplicate it. Right click, configure. I'm going to UI actions here. Who are all joined? Banu joined, right? So they, yeah, very
Y-
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So my UI action name, I'm actually keeping it as um, update short description. My UI action name is update short description. Action name is very important, guys. Update underscore. So you can keep whatever the name, but make sure there is no space. Okay. So here, if the UI action should appear on new record, we will actually select show insert. If the UI action should appear on existing record, you can actually select this one. If the UI action should appear on both the existing record and new record, then you will select both the checkboxes. Is it clear for you guys?
Yes, Uday.
Okay.
Yeah.
So guys, we will actually discuss this part later, client checkbox and the overrides. So first I will actually explain one thing. After that, we will come to this part. Okay. I'm checking in all these checkboxes. So I am checking primary here. So for these, I'm selecting destructive here. Primary means it will actually show you in blue color. So destructive means I'm actually showing it in a red color. Okay. So primary means it is in blue color, and destructive means it will actually show you in a destructive manner. So I'm just clicking on save, guys. Okay, I'm just clicking on save. Now you guys can see how my UI action is looking like. See, update short description. Okay, this is actually called UI action. This is kind of button. If you scroll little down here, so you can also see your update short description here. You can also see update short description here. Okay. Here, if you right click, you can also see here update short description. So these all are the places where you can actually show UI actions. So one is header. One is header. This is actually called a header. So here, it is also called form button. So here this is actually form button. For form context menu. So this is actually form context menu. Okay, form link. Form link in the sense this is actually the form link. This is also called UI action, guys. Okay. Now when it comes to list banner button. So let me just open incident list, guys. So in the incident list also you can show. So destructive I have selected. Here it will show in the red color. Okay. So here it is saying like a list banner button. See list banner button I am actually able to show here. If you scroll little down here, you can see another UI action, update short description. Here also you can see another UI action, update short description. Okay. So list context menu as well. List context menu in the sense, um, here if you scroll little, I think this is the one. Update short description. Update short description. So these all are the places where you can actually show the link, guys. Where you can actually show the link. Okay. So UI actions, displays, and once you select this one, so update short description. So this one. So there are actually multiple places where you can actually show the UI actions. Okay. So what are these show insert and show update purpose, guys?
For new one, for existing.
For new thing, for the, in the new record, if you want to show this UI action, you can select this one. So for the existing records, you will select this one. So I'm just removing this one. This is new record, right? I just saved this one. If I refresh this one on the new record, the action will not be visible here. The action is not visible. So once I submit the form, once I submit the form, so now I am able to see the UI action on existing record. Okay, now I am able to see the record on existing record, the UI action on existing record. So guys, here you guys have to remember one thing. The other day, all the form values will get stored in current object. That is what I have actually explained in the beginning. Do you all guys remember that? Do you all guys remember that? All the form values will get stored in current object. We had actually discussed this part.
Yes, Uday.
Do you guys remember that?
Yeah, yes, yes.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so that current object actually comes under server side, guys. That current object comes under server side. Okay, so what do you mean by server side? When you are dealing with the database, that is actually called server side. Okay, so here if you want to directly update the data in database, so you will have to use current object here in the script. Okay, so UI actions are by default server side, guys. Okay, UI actions are by default server side. So while we are discussing while we are discussing UI actions, our UI actions are client side or server side?
Server side.
Both client side and server side. UI actions are both client side and server side. Okay. So UI actions are both client side and server side, guys. You guys have to remember this part. So UI actions are in server side, UI actions are in client side both. So now by default UI actions are server side. So using current object. So current dot short description equal to, so current dot, what am I doing? Update here. Current dot update. Okay. So after that, action dot set redirect URL current. Okay. Current dot set you. So if I click on this one, so here in the short description, whatever that I have specified, right, that will be updated here. See here, I am Uday. So this is what I have actually specified here. In the current dot short description, I have actually specified I am Uday. So in the short description field, I am keeping up I am Uday and updating using update function, current dot update function, and redirecting the same URL. Redirecting the same URL, guys. Are you guys able to understand? Are you guys able to understand? Hello,
Yes, Uday.
Yes.
Venkat, Naveen, Shyam, Banu. You guys are able to understand?
Yes, Uday. Yes, Uday.
Yeah. So guys, this current object is actually server side that you guys have to remember. Okay. Likewise, likewise, if you want to update the description as well, so what you can do, current dot description equal to I am Naveen. Okay. So now if I refresh it, see here in the short description I have kept as I am Uday. In the description I have kept as I am Naveen. Okay. So by default, it will work on a server side, guys. Even if you refresh the form also, the values will not get changed. The values will not get changed because why is it showing Showing I am Navin here. So even if you refresh also, the data is not getting changed here because we updated this data in the database. Okay. Now, so we updated this data in the database. You guys are able to understand because even if you refresh also, we are able to see the same value. Okay. You guys are able to understand it or not?
Yes, Uday.
Okay. Now, what am I going to do is, I am going to update the short description and description from the client. Okay. So what am I going to do is, I am going to check this checkbox, client checkbox. Once I check this checkbox, now you will be able to see on-click function. Okay. Now, once you click on the checkbox, client checkbox, you will be able to see on-click function here. I am removing all this server-side scripting. Okay, what am I doing? I am actually defining a function here. Function fill short description. So you can name it whatever. Okay, this function name, what am I doing is I'm actually calling here. Inside this function, I'm actually filling the value g underscore form dot set value. So g underscore form means what is g underscore form? Client side API or server side API?
Client side.
Okay. Now the UI action now will work in the client side because we have checked the client checkbox. Okay. So earlier we haven't checked the checkbox. That is why by default it will work in the server side. As you are checking this checkbox, this UI action will work in the client side. Okay. Now I'm going to refresh this record. So I'm going to change it to something else. Hello. Hi there. I'm going to change it to something else. Okay. So now what am I going to do is I am going to click on update short description here. Once I select update short description here, the values are set as I am Uday, I am Navin. The values are set in the client side. The values are not saved in the database. If I refresh this one, the values will be gone. Let me just refresh it again, guys. See, the values are gone. The values are not saved in database. If I select this one, the values are being set from the client. If I refresh this one, the values will not be available again now. See, the values are not saved in the database. If I select this one, the values are being set in the client, but the values are not saved in database. If I refresh this one, see, the values are not saved in database. If I click on this one, the values are being set. So where are these values are being set? These values are being set in the client side, not saved in database. Are you guys clear?
Yes, sir.
See, these values are being set on the form level. These values are not saved in database. So while we are discussing UI actions work in the server side, the values are being saved in database. Do you guys agree?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So now we have actually seen we have actually seen how to update the values in the client. On the user interface level, how to update the value, we have actually seen. Okay. Now, from the client side to server side, how do so UI actions will work on both client side and server side, we had actually discussed, right? So this will work in the server side when you don't check this checkbox. When you don't check this checkbox, it will by default work in the server side. If you want to make this working in the client side, you will check this checkbox. Okay. So once you check this checkbox, what happens is that, right, it will work in the client side. So here the point that you guys have to remember is you can actually move from client side to server side. So, you are actually filling the values in the client side. So you are actually filling the values in the client side, and you can actually move from client side to server side, guys. Sorry, guys. So here, guys, here you guys have to remember one thing. Um, so the values are being set in the client side. The values are being set in the client side, and you want to move from client side to server side, guys. Okay, you want to move from client side to server side. So there is a function, guys, that is actually GSFT submit. GSFT submit, which is used to move from client side to server side. Okay. So here we guys have to keep this action name. We have to keep this action name, guys. Okay. So here type of window equal to so this type of window equal to undefined means, guys, while moving from client side to server side, while moving from client side to server side, we need to make sure there are no browser errors. Okay. So that is why I'm actually writing side, server side script. I am calling this function here. Okay. So this function I'm actually defining here. Okay. Current dot update. So action dot set redirect URL current. So guys, by default, UI actions work in the server side. We can make UI actions work in the client side, guys. How do we make UI actions work in the client side? By checking the client checkbox. So once you check the checkbox, it will work only in the client side. So guys, here in the UI actions, you can actually move from client side to server side by specifying GSFT submit function. Okay. So here, if I refresh this one, okay, here now I'm actually filling the values from the client and updating the values in the database. The values are not getting updated in the database. It is only setting the values in the client side. Okay, I'm just taking the function here. Don't think there is no spelling mistake here. I think we haven't refreshed the form, looks like. That would be the reason. I'm trying to update the short description here. See, the values are being set up from the client and the details are updated in database as well. Now let me just refresh this one. Are the values are let me just refresh this one, right? The values are getting changed here. So let me just change it to something. Hello there. How are you? I'm actually keeping here, saving something like this. So when I click on the update short description UI action, what exactly will happen is that it will actually update the short description and description, and it will actually update the short description and description from the client, and it will actually move server side, and it will update the data into the database. Let me just click on this one. If I refresh this now, the value should not be changing if the data has been updated in database. See, the values are not getting changed here. So here you guys have to remember one thing. So UI actions will work on by default server side. So and also you can make UI actions work in the client side. You can actually make UI actions work in the client side. So you can make UI actions work in the both client side and server side. Okay, you guys are able to understand what I'm trying to convey. Hello.
Yes, Uday.
So guys, here the point that you guys have to remember is UI actions will by default work on server side. So if you want to make that working in the client side, you will have to check this checkbox. So you can actually write a function. Inside that function, you can actually write the client side script. From the client side, if you want to move again to server side, you will have to use a function called gsft submit null g underscore form dot get form element and the UI action